Hello again. Today I wanted to entitle this episode Home, Safe Space and Inner Space. And I wanted to talk a little bit about having a feeling where we don't actually feel connected to where we're living. So even though I'm not homeless anymore, and I spoke a little bit about this in the other videos, even though I'm not homeless anymore, I still consider myself a person with no home. I have a roof over my head, I have a place to wash and a place to cook, but I've been living in shared or supported accommodations for quite a few years now. And the the way that it kind of works is that there's a lot of people in a very small and cramped space usually, or some of the other people that you may have to live with have very complex needs which may or may not affect you and affect your experience within that place. So although I said I do have a roof over my head and whatnot, the reason I say I don't feel like I've got a home is because I feel like my body and my home is connected, or a home and my body is connected. And I use that metaphor in a few of my poems because in a way, when you're homeless, everything kind of shuts down. Your health, it affects your health, it affects your mental health, your physical health, your emotional well-being. It affects you in so many different ways, and it kind of feels like a house that's been ransacked or burgled, or it feels like someone has trespassed into your house and either taken something from you or just damaged your property, but that property is your home, that property is your body, that property is your mind. And that's kind of the way that I've been thinking about it for quite a few years. And I feel like my inner space is compromised because of it. So I'll take you back a few years. So about 6 years ago, I was called in to my doctor's surgery to get a routine smear test. And during this procedure, I realised towards the end that the speculum that the nurse used, or the medical practitioner used, was actually not sterilised, and it came from like a open bag of speculums. Straight after this, literally the next day, I started to get really ill, and my health has just gradually deteriorated. So this happened 6 years ago. I still actually suffer with the same symptoms, although the symptoms have ranged. So I still have like pelvic symptoms where I feel pain in my reproductive system, and I started getting gradually sick. I started to get migraines from this afterwards, and it just kind of got worse and worse and worse. At current, I'm still having tests done and scans done to figure out what exactly is going on there and what the cause is. So I'm not sure what exactly I've been diagnosed with so far. I was told that I do have fibroids from the doctor, but I was told that isn't something that causes pain in females. So basically I'm still having tests done and trying to figure out what exactly the problem is and what's happened. But because quite early on within the first year or so, I realised that was actually linked to, or I assumed that was linked to medical malpractice basically. And so from that time up until now, or up until perhaps last year, I've been actually trying to get some sort of recognition, and I asked for compensation. I've made a formal complaint. I've had to go through lots of different bodies and got like organisations which deal with medical negligence, and I've basically tried to gradually take each step towards in the complaint system basically. So far nothing has been done. I've kind of stopped doing that because there's nothing I can really do, and by the time that I finished writing reports and formal complaints, they basically said I told them too late, because it was about maybe a year or two after, because I actually had so many illnesses that I couldn't really focus on the complaint system, because to complain you need to have a certain amount of energy. It takes a long time. You get kind of shifted from different organisations to different organisations, and during that time I was actually just trying to find medical help, because I found that I wasn't getting helped in the hospitals. I was going into emergency a lot and stuff like that. So when I felt that I was kind of more, I was still in pain, but I could, it was a bit more neutral, I guess. Then I tried to pick up the complaints and try and basically formulate that in a formal manner. So yeah, so I did try and get some sort of legal help. There wasn't a lot offered to me. I'm on benefits, so if you have a lot of money, you'd be able to get probably a very good lawyer to be able to help you with that. So I did try and basically complain, and nothing has happened. So yeah, some people might consider this some form of poetic justice, I suppose. And in a way, me having this space and this platform to read my poems and to talk a little bit to you, it does make me feel a bit, not stronger, but it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable in terms of me just having a space to be able to not really offer advice, but just kind of give a word about what's happened and how my poems are related to that and whatnot. So yeah, so that happened, and then that completely made me feel like an empty home, basically. So I bring that to the metaphor that I use in some of my poetry, where I feel like my body, my inner space, has just been conquered, it's been taken over. I don't have that space for myself anymore. That definitely is very prominent with what I had been through with the medical negligence thing, because that's a very intimate type of examination, and the way that it was conducted, and because it wasn't done properly, it kind of just leaves you feeling really like an empty shell of a person. You don't have control over your inner space, basically, and someone has trespassed into that in a wrong way, in the way that they shouldn't have been doing. Then after that happened, I think about 2 years later, I was at Heathrow Airport, and I was trying to get a flight to America, and I was actually pulled off of the flight. I bought my ticket, and I had evidence that I bought my ticket to go, and then I was actually pulled off the aeroplane by two policemen, and one of the policemen actually, he had my hands behind my back as if to arrest me or to handcuff me, and he actually tried to break my arm. He was using excessive force, and there were two police officers, one that was doing that to me, and there was one that was standing by, and he actually had a body camera on him, so I know that he picked up on the images in the film that was happening at that moment. For that, I also tried to make a complaint, and I've sent that to various bodies and departments, and even though I know for a fact that must have been filmed, I got absolutely no apology, no anything for that. So I kind of just went through this period of trying to complain and trying to gain some sort of justice, not just the medical side, but also with what happened in terms of using excessive force, and nothing was actually happening, but my health was just deteriorating, so obviously that didn't help. So I went to the hospital after that had taken place to make sure there was nothing wrong with my arm, or I didn't have a fracture or anything like that. So that whole period of time, I was just kind of trying to get justice. At this moment, I've exerted all of the methods and all of the departments that I could possibly go to. So I'm kind of at a stage where it's kind of, I guess it's just left how it is, because there's not much that I can do, and unless you have a lot of money to be able to afford proper legal aid and advice, you're kind of left feeling a bit empty and a bit used, and a bit just feeling like you need to be repaired, or to have some sort of healing process, I guess. So I would say since those two incidents have taken place, I've kind of been trying to repair myself mentally, emotionally, physically, and yeah, I just kind of have this metaphor and this imagery of me having a home, but it's not really my home, and someone is trespassing that. Someone has come into your home without you allowing them to, and damaging basically your property, damaging your body, your circle, your inner space, everything. So yeah, I definitely think having a space where you've got it to yourself and it's your inner space, you feel comforted, you feel at ease, you feel content, somewhere where you have that feeling and it feels safe to you. some of the places I've lived with various people, and not everybody has the same level of being civil and talking to one another in a respectful way. So there are people that are very their needs are very complex, and you don't necessarily have the means to reach out to them in that way because you've got your own issues going on. So I think I just wanted to talk a bit about that, because I think for whoever it is, you deserve to have that feeling where your inner space is a safe space for you, and where that's not being trespassed, or it's not being abused in any sort of way. So I'm actually going to read two poems for you today. Both of them have the metaphor of a home as someone's body or as my body, and just basically feeling like an empty, derelict home now that I've been through this, and I've been through certain procedures or certain methods in order to try and get justice, but both of them failing. And so one of the poems that I've got to read to you is a shorter one, and I wrote actually this a few years ago, because that's when that kind of metaphor started coming to me as just feeling like a home that isn't really a home. It's not a safe space for me. So there's that one, and then I have another one which I wrote this week, which is slightly longer, and I think it kind of speaks to my heart. It kind of describes how I'm kind of feeling in that way, in terms of feeling like an empty home and whatnot. So I'll read you the one that I wrote a little while ago. This one is called Empty House, Broken Dreams. I enter the home I once lived in. I see the shattered glass broken from the window for my sins. Each movement I take, the ground shudders like an earthquake. No cover or rugs, just a bare concrete floor. The brass hinges cling to the stripped wooden doors. No chairs in the kitchen, no laundry on the line, no stove to cook, no place to dine. Step by step the stairs creak beneath me, faded wallpaper like a gift wrapped for thee. Low hanging ceiling above my head, no white cotton linens draped on the bed. A porcelain sink lined with blue indigo, a wash basin filled with water so shallow as the depths of my heart, that was shot in the centre like an arrow or a dart. And as the blood drips on the concrete floor, I know this home cannot be much more, for it is only an empty house of broken dreams, curtains ripped from windows fraying at the seams. This home was once my body, this house was once my home, but brick and mortar perishes, much like my brittle bones. So that one was called Empty House, Broken Dreams. And that just basically speaks to what I was going through at the time. Still am, kind of, maybe not as drastic, and I've tried to help myself become more content of where I am through different means, but yeah, that kind of speaks to what I was going through at that particular time, what my feelings were, my emotions were, and yeah. And then I've got one which I wrote this week, and this one is called The Reluctant Housewife. So yeah, it's just basically feeling like I haven't got a purpose, or that's an underlying feeling of what I feel. And yeah, so I'll read you this one. This is called The Reluctant Housewife. I heard a knock at the front door. The door frame shuddered and the bell started to ring. I wondered who was here and what they were here for. A loud bang echoed as the door fell from the hinge. A stranger entered the warmth of my living room. He tore my lilac linen curtains at the seam, ripped embroidered cushions, woven rugs, like unravelling a tomb. He damaged the ivory paint on the ceilings and cut my wooden beams. He spilt red wine on my leather sofa till it trickled on the floor. Then he threw the empty bottle and it shattered at the door. I found that same stranger in my kitchen at the table, the oven's warmth like winter with the fur of a sable. He opened my fridge and emptied my freezer. He ransacked my pantry and overfilled my kettle. He took a knife from my drawer and engraved a wooden chair. Then he looked deep into my eyes with a hollow, daunting stare. He stepped into my garden, trampling dandelions and nettles. He scratched his name on the patio table, tarnishing the metal. He put his hands in the earth and plucked a daffodil from the ground. Then he stole my bamboo wind chime so it couldn't make a sound. He lifted a garden gnome and threw it over the tall timber fence. Then his body stiffened and froze and his shoulders began to tense. He heaved his body and climbed the steep stairs, leaving an imprint of muddy boots on the carpet, but he doesn't care. He suspiciously stared at the photos encased in decorative frames. Then he whispered to me that he's happy he came. He continued his way up the carpet-covered stairs until his presence in my home caused anxiety that turned to tears. The stranger introduced himself to my bedroom and my bed, wrapped my floral duvet around his torso until he looked like an Egyptian pharaoh dead. He opened up my wardrobe and tossed out all my clothes. He lifted my glass vase and plucked the petals from a rose. He stood at my bookshelf and pulled out a non-fiction book. But this stranger is illiterate, so he cannot read what he took. The stranger entered my bathroom and sat on the edge of the bath. He ran his fingers over my toiletries and then began to laugh. He placed his body in my bath as if he were to bathe. Then he broke my razor in half so that I could not shave. He ran his fingers over the rim of my porcelain sink. The stranger then yelled out in pain, so loud I could not think. So there it goes, the stranger has intruded upon my home. He expects me to wander around the streets and continue to roam. He's forced me out of my house, so I have nowhere to live. He's ruined everything in my home. I want nothing that he gives. The damage I've received is like an unlawful eviction. That is the end of my story. I'll place it with the rest of my non-fiction. So that one was called The Reluctant Housewife. And it kind of just explores that same theme about a person kind of coming into your home, roaming all around your home, and just kind of causing destruction, basically. And yeah, it's kind of a healing process for me to write these with quite vivid imagery, I think, because I feel like it just kind of speaks to what I'm going through and some of the feelings that I felt, and the need to have a safe space, and a need to feel content and feel comfort with where you are. So if you feel discomfort all of the time, or if you're around people or they're too close, or they're kind of impacting on your space, especially your inner space, then it's very difficult to live like that. So anyway, those are my two poems. The first one was Empty House, Broken Dreams, and the second one was The Reluctant Housewife. I hope you enjoyed those poems, and I'll see you next week.